Hey there, I'm Carrie, and in this video I'm going to be talking about The Lady or the Tiger, a short story by Frank R. Stockton, published in 1882. I'm going to do a summary first and then go back and do an analysis, talk about themes, symbolism, characters, and other stuff you might see on a test or in an essay question. I've got timestamps in the video notes, so definitely scroll down, click around, find exactly what it is you need, and if you are already familiar with this story, then you know it is famous for its open ending that leaves the reader to guess at the fate of one of the characters. If you want to know my guess, watch to the end. All right, without further ado, let's get into The Lady or the Tiger. First line of the story: in the very olden time, there lived a semi-barbaric king. So this is like a once upon a time story or a fairy tale. We have our semi-barbaric king who rules his kingdom with an iron fist. He expects everything to be done exactly according to his will, even though he has some kind of out there ideas, kind of outlandish stuff he comes up with. One of these things is the public arena, known as the King's Arena. So he has this amphitheater style building where all the citizens can crowd in and watch. And when someone is accused of a crime, they can be sent to the arena. Now, in the arena, there are two doors, two identical doors. Nobody knows which is which, but behind one of these doors is a tiger, a very hungry, very angry tiger. And if the person opens that door in the arena, they are seen to be guilty of their crime. And you can imagine what happens when they come face to face with an angry, hungry tiger. Behind the other door is a lady, someone that the king has deemed suitable for the person who is accused. If the person chooses that door, they are seen to be innocent of the crime, and the two of them are married on the spot with the whole kingdom witnessing it and celebrating it. Doesn't matter if the accused person's already married or if they don't want to be married to this woman. That doesn't matter. That's not important. The wedding proceeds. Sometimes the tiger's behind this door, sometimes it's behind that door. Sometimes the lady's behind this door, sometimes behind that door. Nobody knows which is which, not even the king. And everybody just kind of goes with it. They're kind of like, well, you know, they've got it all in their own hands. This is basically fair. The King's Arena is hugely popular with the masses. Everyone turns out to see these trials. Now, the king has a daughter that he loves very much, and she falls in love with a young man of the court, someone who is socially inferior to her. They are very happy together until the king finds out about their relationship, at which point the young man is immediately sentenced to an arena trial. In preparation for the trial, the king sends out for the biggest, fiercest, meanest tiger that can be found, and he selects the most beautiful, dazzling young woman of the court to also be present in the arena. The day of the trial arrives, and massive crowds, like record-breaking crowds, turn out for this because everybody knows what has happened and everyone is extremely curious. The young man walks out into the middle of the arena and everybody's just in awe, you know. Oh my gosh, he's so handsome, he's so brave, oh, the drama of it all. Well, he walks out into the middle of the arena and, as is customary, he bows to the king. But his eyes are on the princess because he knows her very well. And he knows that the second that he was sentenced to an arena trial, the princess would have taken it upon herself to figure out which door is which of these doors has the lady and which of these doors has the tiger. Well, not only does the princess know which one has the tiger and which one has the lady, but she knows who the lady is, and it's a girl that she hates. She's suspicious that this girl is already in love with the young man, and in her worst moments, she even wonders if it's returned, if he is interested in this young woman as well. Anyway, back to the arena. All eyes are on the young man, but his eyes are on the princess. And while everyone is looking at him, sure enough, she picks up her hand and silently, very quickly, makes a movement to the right. The young man does not hesitate. He just turns around, walks to the door on the right, and opens it. And that's where the action of the story basically ends. We don't get any more information on what happened next in the arena. Instead, it kind of zooms out. And we are left with our narrator, our storyteller, who encourages us to kind of solve this riddle for ourselves. The narrator tells us, you know, don't think about what you would have done. Don't think about your feelings. Don't think about your own opinions here. You have to think how the princess considered things. She had terrible nightmares of the young man opening the door and finding the tiger and being forced to watch as the tiger tore this young man to bits. But she had even more nightmares of him opening the door and finding the lady there and having to witness their marriage and have to sit through this huge celebration that the whole kingdom would be part of. The narrator tells us that the princess agonized over her decision. She mulled over it. She deliberated for days before making up her mind. But when the moment came in the arena, she did not hesitate. Last line of the story. And so I leave it with all of you. Which came out of the open door? The lady or the tiger? The end. All right, before we start focusing on themes, let me point out something that is in the very first sentence of the story when we meet our semi-barbaric king who has all these weird notions. It says the king's ideas were polished and sharpened by the progressiveness of distant Latin neighbors. So the distant Latin neighbor that it's referencing is Rome, like the Roman Empire, Rome of 2,000 years ago. And a lot of the beliefs and customs of ancient Rome play into this story, and I will point that out as we go along. One of the major focus points in this story is the idea of chance or fate. This is our first link to ancient Rome. So in Roman mythology, also in Greek mythology, there's a group of supernatural entities called the Fates. They're usually presented as three sisters, and they determine the course of a person's life, when they will be born, how their life will play out, and when they will die. And in mythology, the Fates were seen to be even more powerful than the gods. Nobody could interfere with their will. They had absolute authority over their own choices, and their will was seen to be basically righteous. So we see this in the reaction of the crowd when they're in the arena and they see someone executed. It says the crowd was mourning greatly that one so young and fair or so old and respected should have merited so dire a fate. The word merit means you deserved it, like you had it coming to you. So there's the idea that if the person chooses the tiger, they must have deserved to die. They must have been guilty. And this shows up in our history as well. There is such a thing as a chance verdict where people decide a trial by chance, by drawing a name or flipping a coin. The idea is we'll let fate decide. Super illegal, by the way. Don't think that you can deal with jury duty by doing something like that. You might be familiar with trial by ordeal. That's shown up throughout history, where a person who's accused of a crime can be given an unwinnable physical task, like having to walk through fire or hold your breath underwater. Really famous example of this is trial by water. It was used a lot in witch trials. If a person, typically a woman, was accused of being a witch, she would be tied up and tossed into a body of water, a pond or a river. Now, if she floats, she's a witch and she'd be taken out and executed for being a witch. However, if she sinks, then that is a sign that she is innocent. She's probably drowned at this point, but she is innocent and would be cleared of the accusations. So that's a trial by ordeal where an accused person is given a terrible physical task, and the idea is they'll let the higher power show the truth of the question. Chance is very closely linked to fate. Both of those words are used frequently in this story, chance and fate. Now, human society is addicted to games of chance. Gambling addiction is very well established. And we have gambling at all levels, everything from the state lottery to bingo halls to casinos. And you might be saying, like, I don't take part in any of that. Well, if you've ever watched a sporting event, you know that lots of those begin with a coin toss. We like to add an element of chance. It's seen to make it more fair and less open to argument. Games of chance have also made it into our vocabulary. If you've ever heard someone say, like, we'll draw straws for that, or you drew the short straw, that refers to a game, you don't see it very often anymore, where people had to literally draw straws. Whoever drew the short stick, the short straw, would get stuck with whatever it was that nobody wanted to do. So if somebody says you drew the short straw, it means you got stuck doing something you didn't want to do, by chance. You didn't necessarily deserve it. Roll the dice is also a very popular saying. It means we're just gonna leave it to fate. We've got no control over this. We are just gonna take a chance and hope for the best. Another major focus in this story is violent public spectacle. Blood sport. Violence is entertainment. Now, this is borrowed from ancient Rome. The arena, the king's arena in this story, is based on the Roman arenas, the amphitheaters. The most famous one is the Colosseum, which is still standing in modern Rome. Now, the Colosseum is extremely famous for blood sport, especially the gladiator games. This was massively popular with the Roman public. Huge crowds would flock to the arenas, and it was an important thing for the rulers to provide. Because the crowds liked it so much, it was a good thing to be a sponsor for the games, because then the crowds would like you. This guy is bringing us free entertainment. We like this. We like him. Of course, it would just kill the vibe for the crowd to focus too much on the fact that they are watching someone being killed very painfully. So the rulers, the people who sponsored the gladiator games, would put in elements to make the crowd feel more invested in it. There would be music. There would be stories, scenes from Roman history would be acted out, famous battles and things like that. And every once in a while, a gladiator could be granted freedom in the midst of the gladiator games. All of this helped the crowd feel invested, helped them feel good about what they were seeing and what they were participating in. Okay, so let's get back into our story, talk about how blood sport, how the arena functions in this society. Everybody in this story is kind of going with the idea that the arena is good for people. That is pulled directly from ancient Rome, where there was this idea that watching blood sport, watching the arena games is good for people's brains. So let's get in the text and see how this idea shows up. So talking about the king, it says, among the borrowed notions by which his barbarism had become semified was that of the public arena. Okay, so he was barbaric, but now he's just semi-barbaric because now he's borrowed the public arena. Adopting the public arena has made him more civilized and less barbaric. The irony, of course, is that the Roman arenas were horribly brutal. They were outrageously barbaric. Then let's talk about how the masses view the arena. By exhibitions of manly and beastly valor, the minds of his subjects were refined and cultured. It's good for them. It's good for their brains. They become better thinkers. They become more worldly by watching this kind of thing. In reality, it's just a way of maintaining popularity. It even says it in here. The masses were entertained and pleased. This is fun for them to come and watch this game of chance, but it's also a reminder the king has control over their lives. He decides who goes into that arena, and if they step out of line, it could be them. It wasn't just games that happened in the Roman arenas. Public executions could happen as well. One particularly nasty form of capital punishment was something called Damnatio ad bestia. That translates to condemnation to beasts. It's literally death by wild beast. They would throw you to the wild animals. It could be bears, it could be wolves, but usually it was big cats, lions, leopards, and most popularly, tigers. This played a role in religious persecution. Several of the Roman emperors were not fond of the early Christian population, and those people could be punished by being rounded up and thrown into the arena. That is what the text is talking about when it says the inevitable conclusion of a conflict between religious opinions and hungry jaws. That is what the author is referencing there, is that particular form of religious persecution. To be subjected to this form of execution was considered humiliating. It's absolutely disgraceful, and only the worst criminals, like enemies of the state, would have to face this. If we get back in our story, that shows what the king thinks of this young man. But the weird thing is, the young man, I don't think, has broken a law in this story. He has just broken a social convention by having a relationship with someone that is socially superior to him, to the princess. So his crime here, according to the king, is that he is too low. He's in the arena because he is inferior. The message for the crowd from their king is, remember the hierarchy here. Remember who's in charge. I am at the top, and anyone lower than me can end up out there. All right, let's zero in on our characters here. Take a closer look at them. First, the king, our semi-barbaric king who likes to borrow traditions from Rome and twist them around for his own little games. His chief characteristic is his total denial of any kind of responsibility here. He claims that he has no power in the arena, that everything is decided by the decrees of an impartial and incorruptible chance. Now, a decree is a legal order, something that cannot be violated. So he's putting out this idea that he's answering to a higher power. He doesn't have the right to question it. Chance is incorruptible. It cannot be bribed. It can't be swayed, and he can't mess with it. Of course, this is a lie. The idea that he's powerless here is a complete lie because he invented the arena practice. It's not a tradition that he feels compelled to uphold. It's not a typical method of dispensing justice in the society. And even if it was, he's not dispensing it evenly because only cases that he is interested in end up in the arena. So he started this. He's manipulating it, and he can end it if it suited him to do so. The thing is, he doesn't want to end it. He's having fun with this. We learned this at the very beginning of the story. The text says, "Nothing pleased him so much as to make the crooked straight and crush down uneven places." He likes it when someone steps out of line because that gives him a chance to beat them back into line. He loves throwing his weight around here. The arena is absolutely for his own purposes. When he's reflecting on the young man getting sent to the arena, the text says, "No matter how the affair turned out, the youth would be disposed of." So this is not about chance or fate or justice. This is just all a power trip. And he wins either way. Either this kid who's annoying him by having a relationship with his daughter, either this kid dies or he gets married off very publicly. Everyone will know about this marriage. The two of them will always be wrapped up together in the public's mind. So either way, he has ended this relationship. This problem is done with. It's taken care of. Okay, so let's talk about his relationship with the princess. The text says she's as blooming as his most florid fancies. So fancies are like ideas, things out of your imagination that you have created yourself. So this really groups her with his other inventions, his other creations. It makes her an object. Only after this does it mention that he loves her. So it seems like their relationship is about pride and control first and family affection only afterwards as an afterthought. Now let's talk about the princess. She may not be the one in the arena, but she's definitely still being punished here. She is part of the show. She is a public spectacle. Her private life has been laid bare before everyone. Everybody knows what happened. However, she is trying to fight back. She is silently defying her father because she's subverting his game. By taking the power that she has, by making a choice for herself, she is breaking his game. It's a slap in the face, even if he never knows about it. Now, I feel like the speaker villainizes her more than the king. Our first description of her is as fervent and imperious as her father. So she's being compared to her father. They're saying that they have these things in common, but these words have not been used previously in the text. They only come up when the princess is mentioned, so we're more likely to associate them with her than we are with her father. There's also some implication that she is choosing the tiger because she is constantly called semi-barbaric. We're reminded of that several times, but she seems more upset over the concept of the woman, him marrying someone else, than she does the idea of the tiger. What I like about her is that regardless of her choice, she is taking responsibility. Unlike her father, she is not denying her power in this situation. She agonizes over the decision for days because she knows there are consequences, and she's going to have to live with the consequences. I think she is another link to the fates, these Roman deities, these Greek deities, because she is also taking someone's life in her hands. She's not only deciding whether he'll live or die, but how he'll live and who he is going to live with. And in the text, it doesn't look like she has any confidants. She does not have someone to discuss this with. There's no advisor. There's no best friend that can help her decide this. This is all on her. Her will is the only one that matters. Now let's talk about her relationship with the young man. I see this as a throwback to the courtly love romances of the medieval period. Those romance stories were always about a doomed love, a relationship that could never be, usually between a knight and a lady that outranked him. She was unavailable to him for whatever reason. However, the knight could still prove his devotion through courageous deeds and through selfless deeds. He could prove his love for her by obedience to her will, following her instructions, doing what she wanted. So in these stories, the woman is elevated in a way, but she doesn't have a lot of choices that she can make for herself. She can make decisions about him, and he can choose whether or not to listen to her, but she doesn't have a lot of control over her own life. So you see how the princess fits into that. And the young man here is making himself subject to the princess. That is his act of love for her by submitting to her will. He is giving her the opportunity to choose what she can live with. He's letting her choose the path that gives her the best chance at happiness, the best chance at living. No matter what it means for him, he is willing to do it for her. And this is also his act of defiance against the king. He may be in the arena by the king's will, but the king does not get the final say. He is in partnership with the princess. This is like their last act as a couple. This is their Romeo and Juliet moment. There is not going to be a happy ending for the two of them, but they have made a choice in this situation. They have chosen not to play the game. The crowd also has a role to play in this story, and I think the crowd might represent the reader. I think the author wants us to question what we are entertained by and what kind of responsibility we have in regards to what we're entertained by. The crowd, when they're looking at the young man, the sentiment is how terrible for him, the young man, to be there in the arena. If it's terrible, why are they turning out for it? It's the crowd's participation that keeps this going. The arena is very popular. They love this game of chance. Let's look back in the text. The masses were entertained and pleased. They're having a great time. And the thinking part of the community could bring no charge of unfairness against this plan. For did not the accused person have the whole matter in his own hands? The reality of it is no, the person in the arena has no power. Either they die or they live a life that they don't want with a person that they didn't choose. So the crowd is denying their own responsibility here. Maybe it's out of fear for the king, they don't want to contradict him, or maybe they just ignore their own misgivings so they don't feel guilty. They blame the person in the arena so that they can keep enjoying the game. Then we have the speaker. Now, the story is almost over when the speaker suddenly appears, in that moment after the young man opens the door. And the speaker is really in like a teacher role here, a storyteller role. The last line begins, "And so I leave it with you." That's the speaker saying, I'm done here. I'm not going to say anything else. You're never going to know the absolute answer. And we don't get an absolute answer because this is meant to be a teaching tool. This is like a fable or a parable. It's a story with a lesson. The speaker wants us to think. He wants us to reason through it, argue about it, talk about it. This is another reference to Roman tradition. The Roman philosophers, as well as the Greek ones, would teach their students this way, give them parables and fables, and have them argue over it. Argue over this riddle, logic through it. They wanted to keep their students engaged, but they also wanted them to learn. That's what the speaker does for us here, saying, don't think about yourself. Don't think about your own opinions, your own feelings about this. Think about the princess. So he's saying, use logic, not emotion. Look at the evidence and draw your conclusion from that. You also need to remember that if you end up needing to write a paper on this, it can't be just about whether or not you liked this story. You need to look at the text, look at the evidence, find a pattern, draw a conclusion. Okay, I said I would give you my guess, and my guess is the lady. And I will tell you why. I have a reason. The princess is struggling a lot more with the idea of the lady than she is the idea of the tiger. She is reflecting on all the terrible things about the lady. I think that's because she knows what she should choose. She knows what she needs to choose, but she also knows how much she is going to hate it. So she's questioning herself like, can I actually live with this? Can I live with a lifetime of pain, a lifetime of daily humiliation? And I think she knows it's coming. She's more troubled by it because this is definitely coming and she's dreading it. I think that's why the tiger only gets a very brief mention in that portion of the story, because she considers it and she rejects it immediately. Nope. Can't do it. It's too horrible even to think about. As difficult as it will be to think of this young man with someone else, it's easier to think about that than to consider that she might lose him entirely. Now, I would really like to know what your guesses are, so drop that in the comments and don't forget to tell me why. That's about all I've got on The Lady or the Tiger. I hope something in there was helpful to you. If it was, please like and subscribe and turn on notifications so you know when the next story or poem becomes available. If you had a different story in mind or a particular author that you're interested in, drop that in the comments as well, and I will see what I can do. Best of luck to you, and I'll see you in the next chapter.